Hello and welcome to this very special multilingual performance of The City Next Door at Passa Porta Festival. It gives me great pleasure to be here amongst friends and new acquaintances, poets, translators, performers, theatre makers. I'd like to first introduce my first guest, Francesca Spinelli, a journalist and translator based in Brussels. Hello, Francesca.
Hello, Ra.
We're sitting here in the Beurs Café in the Beursschouwburg Theatre in the heart of Brussels. It's really a pleasure to be in a cafe in the city again, something I've really missed in this last year, and to be with new and old faces. And in my poem, The City Next Door, I talk about the different faces of Brussels, its linguistic, ethnic and cultural faces. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, whether you believe that Brussels is translatable. Is it an ultimately explainable place, as I say in my text?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing us all together here today, and also for offering us the opportunity to work on this text and to think about Brussels, and also to think about the question that you just asked me. So is Brussels translatable? As a journalist and as a translator, I've thought about this. And yes, I've come to the conclusion, as you did, that it is translatable. It's a big challenge. It's a unique city. What first struck me when I arrived here as a journalist is that people from outside only really knew a small image from what they could see at the TV, so the European flag and not much more. But then I realized that around that flag there was a whole European quarter that had a history, and one of my first articles was about that quarter.
Yeah, and I'd like you kindly shared that article with me recently, which is called La Frontière d'eau, or the water barrier, if you like. And I thought that was a very apt title for the problems that exist between different communities in the city, and the fact that translation can cross those barriers and bring back moments of truth and moments of clarity from across different communities. So I think that for me is our purpose as translators and writers and artists, is to bring some of that home truth back and to bring clarity and meaning to things that are sometimes mystified. And as you know, this poem, although it does not mention the commune of Molenbeek, it is indirectly referencing Molenbeek all the time, with references to the canal, to the social inequality we may see there, to the different languages spoken. And this is why it was so important for me to offer it in different languages. And it was actually the Irish translator Gabriel Rosenstock who had this wonderful idea to create a linguistic mosaic, which might in some small way represent the diversity of Brussels. But it's only a beginning. We have 11 languages now, and I hope to be able to share it across other languages. So thank you very much for contributing to that. And can I just ask you finally, what were the challenges for you translating a text based in Brussels? Were you able to get the right perspective as somebody who lives in Brussels, or how did you approach it?
Well, that is an interesting question. It's really about the legitimacy of a translator. So is it because I live here that I could better translate? Yes, no, maybe. I think so, probably. But then there's also the empathy that's very important. It's not because you live in Brussels, I guess it's also because you really have a feeling for Brussels, and I think we all share it here. And in this way, I believe, at least I tried, to really put some of this feeling for Brussels in my translation. Okay.
And that just would be, something I'd like to stress as well, that as a writer living in Brussels, it's not my native city, I'm from Dublin originally, that I feel that I'm always translating on and off the page, and that translation is just a great way to make connections with other people, especially in times when we're not able to sit in cafes, places we love, and be together and hear all that beautiful music that all those languages in Brussels make. So it was really fantastic, and it's a great pleasure to take part in this festival and to share that cultural moment and to listen to all those different sounds in languages I don't understand, but that have very generously translated the emotions, feelings, and images that I placed in the text. So thank you very much. I'll just give a very brief overview of how this is going to take place. So the poem was translated into, is in 10 sections and was translated by 11 translators. We're not going to read all of the sections, only 6 of the sections will be read today. So I'm going to start immediately after thanking Francesca for her time. Thank you very much. I'm going to start immediately reading the first short section in English and then in Irish, translated by the renowned Irish poet and translator Gabriel Rosenstock. The city of incredible crumbling facades, the shining new city, the same old dilapidated faces. The city that welcomes you into her arms, spurns you and spits you out. The indifferent city, the city that leaves nobody indifferent. The city of tenements, gated communities, bleak prospects, endless opportunities. The grey city where even a patch of grass is hard to find. The city of canal boats, piles of scrap metal, gravel and sand. The whir of the cement grinder grinding out cities. Cahir na nayana do chredja is I dig skehu, an chahar nua lonrochsha, na shan fossana skrista keana, an chahar adair chogamanirhu, a yultin dit is a chahanamach as a beelhu, an chahar nachwalenia nos comalium in a tev, cahar na junontan na bubble gatahe, druchweiler chursi, Féidir hochtaí gan áirih, cahar lia is an brof féir a hachan tinti, cahar na mád canála, drá bhiotal in a charn, garvéil is ganye, seurán ón mascór straine, agus cahracha amrú a machige. I'd now like to invite our second guest, my long-term friend and theatre collaborator, the Belgian theatre director Rémi Beelprez. Welcome, Rémi.
Hi,
Rémi is going to read the Dutch translation of the second section. So I'm going to start in English and then Rémi will follow me. Crossing the canal, the cityscape changes into one giant bazaar. Shops stuffed with taffeta gowns, dangling displays of mops and buckets, musty dry goods stores, white-tile bakeries with small mountains of sticky cakes. Cafes where the same faces sit half the day sipping milky coffee slowly out of glasses, the snuff going round, where men and boys greet each other by touching hands then chest, where women are never seen and seldom spoken of, where men gather on weekday nights to watch the football and cheer their teams on with loud rounds of clapping and roars that subside into oohs and ahs of these same men going home to cramped apartments full of children, washing and chattering women, of plumbers, bakers, electricians, lift technicians, builders, restaurateurs, wholesalers, shop owners, fruit sellers, van drivers, taxi men and sewerage pipe unblockers, all sharing the euphoria of big screen sports, the spectacle, the manly camaraderie away from the women and their practical concerns. Of even the other side of the boulevard being another country, North African, wall to wall, squat workers' houses divided into flats, women mopping down the front steps and pouring the grey water into the gutter, mosques in garages with a tangle of wires connected to a generator on the next floor, fishmongers selling cheap Atlantic cod and Mediterranean sardines.
Als je het kanaal oversteekt, verandert het stadsbeeld in één grote bazaar. Winkels vol taffeta-jurken, bungelende uitstallingen van dweilen en emmers, muffe textielwinkels, wit betegelde bakkerijen met kleine bergen kleverige taarten. Cafés waar dezelfde gezichten de helft van de dag melkachtige koffie uit glazen zitten te snippen en de snuiftabak de ronde doet. Waar mannen en jongens elkaar begroeten door eerst de handen en dan de borst aan te raken, waar vrouwen nooit te zien zijn en waar er zelden over gesproken wordt, waar mannen zich op doordeweekse avonden verzamelen om naar het voetbal te kijken en hun teams toejuichen met hevig gebrul dat wegzinkt in collectieve oh's en ah's. Van diezelfde mannen die huiswaarts keren naar krappe appartementen vol kinderen, wassende en kletsende vrouwen, van loodgieters, bakkers, elektriciens, lifttechnici, bouwarbeiders, restauranthouders, groothandelaars, winkeliers, fruitverkopers, vrachtwagenchauffeurs, taxichauffeurs en rioolbuisontstoppers, die allemaal de euforie van sport op het grote scherm delen, de mannelijke kameraadschap weg van de vrouwen en hun praktische zorgen. Van zelfs de andere kant van de boulevard als een ander land, Noord-Afrikaans, van muur tot muur. Ineengedoken arbeiderswoningen verdeeld in appartementen. Vrouwen die vooraan de trappen dweilen en het grijze water in de goot gieten. Moskeeën in garages met een wirwar van draden die verbonden zijn met een generator naar de volgende verdieping. Visverkopers die goedkope Atlantische kabeljauw verkopen en mediterrane sardine.
Thank you, Rémi. We're now going to move on to the third section of the poem. I'm going to read in English, and the third part will be translated then into Bruxellaire, or the Brussels dialect. I'd like to introduce Gert Van Estendal, a renowned Belgian novelist, poet, and essayist who very generously offered his time and expertise in the various dialects of Brussels and Belgium to make this fantastic translation. So I'll read the first part in English, and then Gert is going to join you in Bruxellaire. The boulevard where the groups of Roma shoot dice, where cars pull up and electric windows slide down, revealing fat men in black shades and leather jackets who stare straight ahead and never smile. The boulevard where the barber shops hang out their towels to dry. The boulevard where the drunks shout obscenities at the passers-by. The boulevard where the cars race like a herd of buffalo over the bridge. The boulevard where the trees look like amputated limbs. Where old men in pork pie hats and Sunday suits sit leaning on walking sticks beside fat women in flowery dresses who keep a sharp eye on brown-faced children with runny noses. Of the complete indifference of these people to noise, pollution, polite behavior, discretion, traffic police. Of their complete absorption in gossip, argument, showing off, practical jokes, playing, nursing, breastfeeding. In short, the business of life itself. Of knowing that I lived in this city at a particular time, an interesting time, as the cliché goes, a time of change. Of not really knowing what to make of it all, of living it instead. Of losing faith that words can convey the essence of the place. Of meeting strangers here. Of getting lost inside the multiplying realities of images. Of always being brought crashing down to earth by something ordinary becoming extraordinary under another aspect.
De boulevards, hoe dat de Roma op een hupke met de tijgerlingen spelen, hoe dat tot ons volle petrol ronken en dellen trigge roete heel stilletjes snoebenijen goen, en dan dikke pijsteunen met zwette zonnebrillen en leire blousons, dan neem maar niet bezeen. En daar precies nu het hem leren lachen. De boulevards, hoe dat de coiffeurs al een handdoeken te drugen hangen. De boulevards, hoe dat de zatlappen schief à lavabo roepen naar de passanten. De boulevards, hoe dat totos over de brug fonceren gelijk als willebuffels. De boulevards, hoe dat de buurmen precies schamputij dermen zijn. Hoe dat aapparten met plattoeikes op hulle poelsbest over hulle stok hangen, nufst matten met de bloemetjeskleed dat hulle broen stondneuzen scherp in duur gaven. Dat had lawaai, de stank, de goeie manieren, de police. En dat gaat smoel moeten haven. Dat hij mensen allemaal geen vloed kan schillen. Dat ze gielen gaan stopgoen in hulle babbelderij, hulle reuzen, stoefera en zwans, hulle menage, dat de kleine de bust wilt, aleid lijven gelijk als des. Dat kwijt dat in die stad gewoond hem op een gegeven moment, een tof moment. Moment dat alles omver valt, gelijk als ze zeggen. Dat ik niet meer weet wat ik moet pazen in plots van mij te doen met een up. Dat ik niet kan geloven dat wouden de zeel van die plots kunnen laten klinken. Dat ik vreemden zijn tegengekomen, dat ik verloren zijn gelopen in al dat belde dat altijd doen vertekken. Dat ik altijd van her op neut met mijn puten op de grond zijn getrokken. Dat heet dat vriet simpel is, mo. Dat anders bezeen gieligans het contraire van simpel is.
Thank you very much for that wonderful rendition. Okay, we're going to go on now to the 5th section of the poem in Lingala and English, not in that order, in English first and then Lingala. I'd like to invite our next guest, Moïse Ilunga. Moïse is an actor, performer, multidisciplinary artist. Il est conteur, cinéaste, acteur, comédien, multidisciplinaire. Et il va maintenant lire le texte après moi en lingala. The city of laundrettes, sweet shops, and internet cafes. Of bodies piled into the tram, shaved armpits and inoculation marks. The contrast between black-skinned feet and pink-skinned soles. Flip-flops and bum bags, Bermuda shorts and tank tops. Blotchy skin and wiry hair gel and spray-on deodorant. The heady smells of flesh and sweat. The hairy arms and shaved legs, the happy trail and the pencil-line moustache. The city of blemishes, acne, eczema and flaking skin. Of serrated fingernails, chipped nail polish, fake eyelashes, bodies tanned and two-toned. A muscular arm, calloused heels and chapped hands. Black children with cornrows. The African centre where the black women hang out till the small hours preening hair, putting in extensions, trying on wigs, getting manicured, all an elaborate excuse for gossip and noisy talk. Flea markets, where junk is laid out on blankets for sale, obsolete technologies, dead men's shoes and tattered comic books. Thinking that if you stay in this city long enough, your stuff ends up piled on the street, jumbled up among the cast-offs of half the world. That you can reconstruct a society from the objects it produces, but never reconstruct an individual life. We're all, in the end, our own inscrutable Tutankhamun.
Mboka ya ba masini esokolaka bilamba, bawenze ya butu pe ba cyber café. Bato bafinani na kati ya tram. Masasamba bakata kunza. Maboko etonda bilembo ya batonga. Bokeseni makasi komona makolo einda kasi na sena yango etela lokola fololo rosa. Balati babrakase, poso makwanza, suki ekuba, bakisi ya basuki bipai, solo ya malasi na mopepe. Solo ya nzoto mpe ya mutoki. Maboko etonda makwanza. Misusu etonda nkunza kasi na makolo kovo. Mandefu songe. Nzela ya kunza. Banda mutolu ti na se. Mboka ya makwanza, maladi ya poso na poso ekuba. Manzaka ebeba. Makiki babamba, verni ya moniato, nzoto batia choko. maboko tala bapake makolo bakwanga ekatana na se maboko ekuba ebeba na kayu bana moindo na bameshe na bango na bakartier ya baafrikain bisika bana basi bazotelenga na ti tongosa baza komi kalinga basuki komeka baperuke bakabelo komibongisa bamanzaka nyonso wana ezopesa makelele songi wenze ya bilokos batanda biloko na se teknoloji ebeba sapato enyafuka balivre pasuka kokanisa ete soki toumeli na mboka oyo biloko na biso kobwakama na balabala mpe kosangana na masolo ya kala nakanisi ete tokoki mpe kotonga mboka na biloko tobwakisa kala mpe nano tosalela te kasi suka ya nyonso toza bilombe bilima ya Toutankhamon.
Merci beaucoup pour cette superbe rendition
Je vous en
de la traduction de Jocelyn Danga. We're going to now move on to the next section. I'd like to introduce our next reader, Francesco Italiano, who is a theatre maker and actor based in Brussels. I'm going to read the text in English, and Francesco is going to follow in Italian. The city outside the window. Slices of watermelon on display in a crate on the pavement. First melon of the season. A group of men huddled around it on a hot day. The shop owner dealing out slices. Buckets of olives drowned in olive oil. Wrinkled medjool dates at 50 cents apiece, buzzing with flies. Toilet paper and nappies piled up under fluorescent lights. All the stuff necessary for a comfortable life with no frills. The city where the planes fly low, the thundering atmosphere, a panorama of the city's glowing embers seen from the sky, the eternal city. The city as a wellhead of stories, these stories imagined from above, each one of the spoken streets containing life and dreams and consciousness, the people of the city as actors, the facades of the city as decor, the violent city just beneath the surface, the night of the raids, packing a bag and being ready to leave if things get too hot, the neighborhood cordoned off, a helicopter hovering, blackout in the thick of it, rubbish blowing down the empty streets. The city that can turn on you, the city as a point of tension, running feet hollow sounding on the pavement, the crowd of onlookers milling about, agonizing, the men at the cafe muttering, the ambulance paralyzed in traffic. The city of near misses, horrific injuries. The man on the cherry pecker whose arm is crushed, the high-pitched yelping, the way your mind concentrates on that one sound and filters out the rest.
La città oltre la finestra. Fette di anguria esposte in una cassetta sull'asfalto. La prima anguria della stagione. Intorno un capannello di uomini in una giornata calda, il negoziante che distribuisce fette, secchielli di olive affogate in olio di oliva, grinzosi datteri medjool a 50 centesimi l'uno, ronzanti di mosche, carta igienica e pannolini impilati sotto i neon, tutto il necessario per una vita comoda e senza fronzoli. La città dove gli aerei volano basso, l'atmosfera tonante, un panorama della città, i tizzoni ardenti della città visti dal cielo, la città eterna, la città come fonte di storie, queste storie immaginate dall'alto. Ciascuna delle strade parlate racchiude vita e sogni e coscienza. Gli abitanti della città come attori, le facciate della città come scenografia. La città violenta appena sotto la superficie. La notte delle retate. Riempire una borsa e essere pronti a scappare se le cose buttano male. Il quartiere transennato. Un elicottero in cielo, oscuramento, totalmente dentro. Rifiuti che volano lungo le strade vuote. La città che può rivoltarsi contro, la città come punto di tensione. Passi di corsa risuonano sordi sull'asfalto, la folla di astanti brulica, angosciata. Gli uomini al bar mormorano, l'ambulanza bloccata nel traffico, la città delle tragedie sfiorate, ferite orribili. L'uomo sulla gru a cestello con il braccio maciullato, le grida acute. Il modo in cui la mente si concentra su quell'unico suono, tagliando fuori il resto.
Grazie.
Prego.
So that was a wonderful translation by Francesca Spinelli, whom you met earlier in the introduction. Thank you, Francesca. We're now going to move on to the last reading of this performance. It's the longest part of the text and has been divided into two parts. I'm going to read the first part in English, followed by Tom Buron, the French poet, reading that section in French, and then Awatif Abdellah is going to read the next section in Moroccan dialect, Darija, and I will finish up in English. I walk home along the canal and hear the windmills creak like rusty winches. I stop to listen at a door with 18 letter boxes, each letter flap opening and closing in the wind like the stops of an organ. The cobwebs on the bridge over the canal hang on for dear life, their dangling prey lit up by green neon lights. Turning into our street, a group of kids play hide and seek at the street corner. The same bunch of kids, thick as thieves, argue over a banknote found in the gutter, how to divide it, how many penny sweets it will buy. The church bell pealing on the hour, a great clamour at 7 o'clock. No one paying it the slightest attention. It might as well be an albatross blown inland. Symbols that have lost all meaning until Sunday morning when a group of Filipinos, dressed in Sunday suits and taffeta gowns, wander happily along the street after Mass, the padre towering over them, the old building already getting cold in their absence. Sitting on the rooftop, smoking, peering down at the passers-by, the houses on different levels, with different door frames and different doorknobs, where standardization has not yet imposed itself, where you can still make out how the city emerged brick by brick, block by block, each builder designing to his own whim. The doors of the kitchen wide open onto the courtyard, the elm spreading out its limbs and filtering out the late evening photons. The kitchen where the water tastes of chlorine and is hard with lime. How this irritates your skin. How years from now you'll have a deposit in your kidneys the size of a wisdom tooth. How your skeleton will always carry around the layers that were laid down here, molecule upon molecule, strata over strata. You and the city inseparable now. Tom.
Je rentre chez moi le long du canal et entends les moulins à vent grincer comme des treuils rouillés. Je m'arrête pour écouter à une porte à 18 boîtes aux lettres. Chacun des clapets, s'ouvrant et se refermant avec le vent, tels des jeux d'orgue. Les toiles d'araignées s'accrochent au pont du canal, comme si leur vie en dépendait. Leur proie, pendante, éclairée par les néons verts. En rentrant dans notre quartier, un groupe de gamins joue à cache-cache au coin de la rue. Cette même bande de gamins, comme larrons en foire, discute d'un billet trouvé dans la gouttière, comment le partager, combien de bonbons se payer avec. La cloche de l'église carillonne, une grande clameur à 7 heures. Personne n'y paie la moindre attention. Cela pourrait tout aussi bien être un albatros ramené dans un souffle sur les terres. Autant de symboles qui perdent leur signification jusqu'au dimanche matin quand un groupe de Philippins en costume du dimanche et robe de taffetas se promènent joyeusement le long de la rue, après la messe. Le padré les surplombe, le vieil édifice se refroidit déjà de leur absence. Assis sur le toit à fumer, scrutant les passants, les maisons à différents niveaux, aux différents cadres de portes et différentes poignées, là où la standardisation ne s'est pas encore imposée, là où l'on peut encore deviner comment la ville a émergé brique après brique, bloc après bloc, chaque constructeur ayant conçu le tout selon ses propres caprices. Les portes de la cuisine, largement ouvertes sur la cour, l'orme étend ses membres pour intercepter les photons de fin de soirée. La cuisine, où l'eau a le goût du chlore et est forte en calcaire. À quel point elle irrite la peau. Le dépôt de la taille d'une dent de sagesse qu'elle construira dans tes reins d'ici quelques années. Ton squelette, qui portera toujours ces couches qui y ont été fixées, molécule sur molécule, strate sur strate, toi et la ville, désormais inséparables.
Merci beaucoup, Tom. C'est Tom et Jenny, Danny qui ont fait cette traduction ensemble. Merci beaucoup. On va maintenant continuer avec la poétesse Awatif Abdellah.
Je commence. Bonsoir tout le monde. المدينة براسها عندها واحد تمثيل غذائي أعضاء مجرى الدم، حتى هي مدروسة مزيودة كتكبر وتنضج وكتموت، وإلا جيتي تقول هاد الشي لأي حد في الطريق ما غاديش يطيق باللي هاد البنية موضوعة، هاد الحيط المواجه، هاد المجرى في الماء غادي يخسر يوما ما ويولي تراب، حتى واحد ما غادي يطيق باش ما عمرك تكون منعزل على الخروج. راهم الضواو والصفارو ديال الزنقة كيضربوا رديوات بالحجر باش عمرك ما تنعس بعمق في البيت اللي كيطلع على الزنقة، باش تفيق مع 4 الصباح، باش تفيق مع 4 الصباح مفيقك مرا جالسة في القنت الزاوية وكتقول أنا عاهرة وكتخرج أقوى كلمات. الراجل اللي كيخرج من أي بلاصة كيشدها من يديها ويجرها عنده ويقول ليها يلا أجي نهضرو بشوية، وهي ما قادراش حتى توقف، بالطالون ديالها تحركات المسكينة ومشات وكتقول أنا عاهرة. اش هاد الهدوء مورا العاصفة؟ المدينة في واحد الحد الصباح سما رمادية مغيمة من مور واحد الليلة كلها شتا، وانت فايق بوحدك حد الشوافرية ديال الطاكسي، وشي ناس غراب حاطين على واحد السخانة والجودة ديال الضو كتبدل شوية بشوية في البلاصة اللي كتطلع للزنقة. المدينة مرتاحة محرة من الشتا، ونعاس القزدير كحل ديال السقف كيبري. الهوا خفيف، الشجر خضر وجديد مستف على طول ديال البولفار. المدينة نعسات ديال مليون راس ناعس على مخاد عمودين بحال شي تماثيل تقال. المدينة بمليون وضعية، ناعس اللي ناعس على كرشو واللي ناعس مقلوب ورجليه مفارقين ملويين ولا مسرحين. الراجل مغطي رجله ولا شي واعي براسو، شي واعي مرتاح ولا عيان من بعد ليلة طويلة وقصيرة من الأحلام. الشوارع ديال المدينة مغسولة بالشتا، مليون لغة ترجمات للسكات، مليون لغة ترجمات السكات. صوت الخطوات تنفس بصعوبة، الفم خانز والعقل كيستعد باش يفيق. السما مرسومة بالزرق فاتح، ضارب في القرمود، الكحل ديال السطوحة. الغنى ديال الفرح ما كتشوفوش كيتسمع في المراح. بلاصة خاوية في الرياض، في وسط هاد المراح كاينة شجرة الدر، دار خضر غارقة بالما ديال الشتا. المدينة كتفيق في واحد الحالة، تأمل صوت واحد باقا كيسمع، واحد الطوموبيل دايزة بشوية بحال شي موجة ثقيلة. المدينة بلا رحمة، المدينة معمرها ما تكون غير ديالنا. المدينة مع الوقت اللي كيدوز بزربة كيتجمع صوت كل واحد مع الآخر، وغتلاقيهم مع بعضهم بعض. الخيط اللي كيربطنا بالمدينة تقطع، تخبات السما وسط الغيام، والضوء الباهت الغراب اللي كان كينقز من سطح لسطح ما قلق وجيعان. حبي ناعس في البيت اللي حدايا. المدينة عمرها تاخد عطلة، وما غاديش تحبس الحياة على قبلك. المدينة غتكمل بيك ولا بيك، ما هو غير فراغ بين النعاس والفياق. وانت المدينة كتشبهوا لبعضكم بعض. وميرسي وشكرا.
شكرا.
ميرسي بوكو.
Awatif. Just to show you before I go on with the very last part, the complexity of Brussels and translation. This translation was made by Nouaja Bentayeb in Moroccan dialect, based on Tom and Jenny's French version. And now I'm going to read my English translation of their translations. The city itself has a metabolism, organs, a bloodstream. It is conceived, gestates, is born, grows, matures, and ultimately dies. That if you were to have said this to any of its citizens along the course of its history, they would not have believed you. That this defensive wall, or that watercourse, or that imposing structure would one day be overcome and ground to dust. No one would believe you. Of never being separated from the outside, the yellow street lights framing the curtains in negative. Of never sleeping deeply in the room that gives onto the street. Of being woken up at 4 a.m. by a woman sitting on the corner steps. Je suis une pute, she says. I'm a whore, spitting out the strong words. The man emerging from nowhere, grabbing her arm, pulling her along. Come on, keep your voice down. Unsteady on her heels, she is led away and is gone. Je suis une pute. The calm after the storm. The city early on a Sunday morning when the sky is a watercolour grey after a night of heavy rain. You, the taxi drivers, and a single crow perched on a chimney pot, the only ones awake. The quality of light changing imperceptibly in the front room giving on to the street. The city in slumber, the city liberated by rainfall and sleep. The black tiles of the roofs dried blacker and shining, the air dense with moisture, the trees that line the boulevard fresh and green. The city slumbers, the city of a million pillowed heads, placed horizontally like heavy pieces of sculpture. The city of a million sleeping postures, face down, belly under, bunched up, stretched out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The million conscious beings rendered semi-conscious, relieved or exhausted after a long or short night's reverie. The rain-washed city streets, the million silenced tongues, stilled feet, the heavy breathing, foul breath, the digestive system and circadian rhythm slowly turning. The conscious mind on standby, the sky now a watery blue, reflected in the black tiles of the rooftops, the blackbird chirping in the courtyard you cannot see. The elm tree in the courtyard, green and swaying, drenched with rain. The city waking like the re-emergence of a meditating mind, sound after sound, impression after impression, flowing. The layers of sound, still individually audible, a car passing slowly like a long breaking wave, the inexorable city waking. The city you cannot hold back, that cannot be prevailed upon. The city as the passage of time, speeding up, the first short wave signals mustering, the individual sounds getting mixed up, losing the thread of the city. The sky broken up into patches of cloud and pale light, the crow tiptoeing along the gutter under the tiled roof, getting restless and hungry. My love sleeping in the next room. The city won't take a day off. The city will not stop for you. The city will go on without you. It's only in this no man's land between sleep and waking, where you and the city stand equal. That brings us to the end of this performance of The City Next Door at Passa Porta Festival. I'd like to just quickly thank a few people who were involved in this project. First of all, the 11 translators who gave generously of their time during the confinement to be involved in this from all corners of the earth. And I'd also like to thank my guests here tonight who really added their music to this polyphonic performance. That was really, really special for me, and I'm very moved. And I'd also like to thank Passa Porta for allowing me this chance to bring the city into the city where it should, bring the poem into the city where it should be, and to have the wonderful idea to commission a Moroccan dialect translation by Nouaja Bentayeb, and this was supported by Darna, the Flemish-Moroccan culture house. Thank you very much. And I'd like to just especially thank Carla Beckmans and Piet Justens, who have guided this project with a sure hand from start to finish and made it what it is, which I hope will give you a taste of the poem and of the multiple identities and languages of Brussels. I would love this poem to travel across different languages, new languages, so please pick up a copy, share it with somebody, and it's been a pleasure sharing this moment and these words with you. Good night and good luck.